So we're looking to find the sort of method we need to use to judge what kinds of rules and principles we would agree to if we want to form a fair, just society. Rawls is going to say that no one should propose a very unequal system for two reasons. First of all, because others won't agree to it, right? The people who will be treated unequally will think this is dumb or unfair and won't agree to it. And second, he'll say that because all these principles will be binding more or less forever, at least for life, you might end up later on in a position, because life is funny like that, where that inequality could come back to bite you later on. And so you should think that you want to treat everyone in society equally because you don't know where in society you'll necessarily end up. You could end up very rich, you could end up very poor, and so you should only propose inequality where that makes everyone better off, because you don't know where you might end up. So here are what Rawls thinks will be the results of deciding on a principle by which we judge the rules for society. He thinks people will all agree on his two principles. First of all, maximal equal liberty, because everyone wants as much freedom as possible, but no one will get away with proposing unfair inequalities. Second of all, inequalities only for the common advantage, because people want to be better off, and so they'll allow inequality when everyone ends up better. Now, Rawls will say that these two principles aren't guaranteed, right? It's not the case that no matter what, if we try to figure out how we should judge how to set up society, these are the two principles that show up. But he thinks that it's certainly possible, and in fact it's very likely that these will be the two principles. We might wonder whether this is right, and I think that this is certainly something we can talk about on the discussion board this week. But Rawls thinks that it's really likely that this is basically what everyone will agree to. Now, he'll also note that these two principles, the liberty principle and the inequality principle, can ground a lot of different kinds of societies. So there aren't, as a result of these, any necessary policies or laws or systems of government or structures or institutions. That says intuitions, that's not what I meant to write, I apologize for that. Right, so you could have, theoretically, right, you could set up a monarchy this way, you could set up an aristocracy this way, you could set up a democracy this way. But the principles, what they do is they place limits on the kinds of societies and structures and all these things that are possible. So you certainly can't have slavery, you can't have exploitation, you can't have tyranny of the majority or tyranny of the minority, right? Everything needs to be set up for the equal benefit and equal liberty of everyone. So it's going to rule out the sorts of things that are characteristically exploitative, characteristically harmful, the sorts of societies that we think there's no possible way you could do this well. These are the kinds of societies that Rawls's principles will rule out, and this seems like a pretty good thing. Now we might wonder, Rawls says, why is it that the idea of fairness seems so basic and seems so intrinsic to what it takes to be just? Well, he's going to say this. The very first step of making something just, he says, involves going right to fairness. Why? He thinks that fairness is what he calls a primitive moral notion. So think about this. If you want to figure out what the right thing to do is when you're trying to make a sort of agreement about the rules or the way things ought to be done, what's the first place you go? You immediately think fair, right? If we, say 5 of us are walking down the street and we find an abandoned pouch of money, right? Or not like a wallet that needs to be returned. We just we stumble on some money. What's the immediate thought on how we ought to divide this up, right? Fairly, we should all get an equal amount. The same goes for if you want to set up how you ought to play a game, right? How ought you to do it? You should do it fairly, right? Everyone should get equal turns, equal, if we're playing Monopoly, everyone should get equal starting money, everyone should get, 1 turn per round, things like that. This is what seems like the just way to do things. We automatically, Rawls says, assume that fairness is the right way to go. And so we think that fair competition only seems right? Nobody should get unfair advantages or disadvantages if we're having competition, be it a game or a job interview and a college application, anything like that. The same goes for economics, right? We think that prices ought to be fair. You shouldn't charge different people a different amount for no reason for different goods. That just seems unfair and unjust. And so he's going to say that, look, things are fair when nobody has unequal, unjustified advantages or disadvantages. And this is the place we automatically go when we want to figure out how to do things right, how to do things justly. So fairness, he says, is a primitive moral notion, and that's why we're all going to agree on fair things, because it's just the first place we go as a result of sort of our human nature to figure out what's just. So fairness is part of what it means, a lot of what it means to be just.